Hello, YouTubers. This is another session where we continue our journey into developing a decentralized social media platform that we call Taarafu. Taarafu is a work of art. It's a decentralized network. It's an open source project, and what makes it so artistic and good is that it's a collaboration of many different engineers from all over the world coming in together, trying to build something for the rest of the world. In the last session, Josh and I, talked a little bit about, having the ability to basically create a simple dialogue, put some data in that dialogue, click post, and then wait. And then after a little bit of waiting time, we need to kind of, handle the exceptions of not being able to basically process a certain request, right? So let's just go here real quick and let's get back to where we were. Let me find Tarofu here real quick. So it's Tarofu portal. Gonna have to stand up the API and the portal. We're gonna have to visualize. I'm gonna increase the screen here real quick, the resolution, give you guys a little bit of a better view just for the people on their phones to be able to view the session. Here it is, and here we go. All right, so there it is. So basically, this is the state of things. I'm gonna share my screen here for a sec. Okay. Okay, so here we go. So this is the state of things in here, and we basically went and said the last test that we had was basically going and saying, I want to be able to, if you do control MO, it'll collapse everything for you. Should disable control and display loading on submit. So this is the state in between. This is that little magical piece where we went and said, give me a little bit of delay here, and this is really important because that basically helps you kind of, see how your component is going to behave, if and only if you're in this middle state in between submitting a request and the request actually being completed. Just to give people a little bit of, insight of what that actually looks like. I'm gonna run Taarafu core here real quick. I'm gonna pull latest, and then we'll basically run the API. So this is the API here. Like I said, there's a lot of contributions going on into the system, and I really appreciate the work and effort that people put in there to kind of keep that project running. Having a social media platform that grants people the ability to express themselves and be themselves and be who they want to be is really important. The more and more the social media social media platforms becomes more engaged into our lives and into our day-to-day lives, and now you can't even log into some certain system unless you have a social media account. Like you'll see now some certain websites that say you can only log with your Google account or your Facebook account or something like that. It doesn't really give you that kind of chance, or Facebook, yeah, it doesn't give you the chance to kind of log in, with just an individual account. So this is happening and it's spreading, and now we're into this metaverse state where people have to kind of, take it to the next level, to the next stage. Anyway, so this is synced up with master. I'm gonna run all these tests just to make sure that my solution is in a healthy state. Really important. Of course, if it's in master, obviously the build is not gonna let it, merge in unless everything is running and passing. But it's also nice to have this running at the same time just to make sure that things are in good state. Here it is. What's up, Joshua? Oh, can you hear me?
Hey, how's it going?
Going great. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right. It's good to see you, sir. It's been a while. What happened?
Yeah,
Did you get mad at me or something? You don't want to talk to me anymore? Is that what it is?
time zone differences. I think is I slept in an hour. I missed a whole week. I don't know.
Okay, Joshua. I was just showing people like where we stopped, right? Just to pick up where we left off. And I'm basically just running if you remember the last time we talked, basically showed that little nice trick with mocking library where you can say delay the response a little bit intentionally, wait a little. Do you remember that part?
Yep.
So okay, so No, here it is, guys. Here's the dialogue, and then some stuff here, and then you click post, and then it'll wait a little bit. Then it will submit a request. Done. Perfect, right? So just waited, disabled all the controls, and then it submitted the request. So what are we going to talk about today, Josh? Today is even going to be a more important piece in this journey. We want to talk about our ability, to kind of transcend um, problem details, from the API all the way up to your UI, right? So, did we talk about problem details before? Do you think we should go over it real quick?
A little bit. We were going to go over exception handling and whatnot, and then you said there was even more in store. You had more to show. So lay it on me.
Okay, so here's the deal, guys. Just for everybody, and Josh is gonna kind of, this is something we haven't done together before, Joshua. So it's gonna be exciting to kind of see what that looks like. This is the next thing in the UI world, right? There's a thing called problem details. If you're running some validations, your service is going to throw an exception. Your exception model has some data in it. So if I want to go here and post a new post, and I just say try it out, and I take everything out from here and just put, I don't know, just the ID or something like that, and I just post like this and say execute. Gonna, what's going to happen is that our validation in the service will return bunch of errors, right? Or return what? Tell me what's wrong. Tell it. Is it
No,
because
no,
I
keep
burped?
going.
I just
Then
ate. I
keep
just
going.
I didn't eat all day. So it's
I'm just trying
what?
to figure out how much in trouble I'm gonna get into. So no, keep going, keep going.
Do you have to go? I
No,
can
no, no,
leave.
no, no, no.
Okay. All right. All right. So So here's a problem detail. And a problem detail basically is that you're posting something, and now you have every single field in here has an issue in it, right? Some of these fields are audit fields. Some of these fields are actual UI fields. I guess in our case, we're not really we don't really have anything other than just the one field, right? So it's such a shame because I wanted to show you like a bunch of fields under each other. It becomes more and more obvious when you're building forms, but this is the standard way and a RESTful API is supposed to communicate. Well, I can't stop smiling when you're smiling, so I don't know what to tell you.
Okay,
It's it,
so I might be so my current team we're spinning up a new app and everything and stuff. We're under the gun. We just encountered this, and so I think it's funny because I hadn't seen this level of details, and I'm used to seeing some kind of error output and everything. But I'm gonna guess that we submit a request, and if it has something issue, not only does it show you that there's an error and give you a coding friendly error, but you're actually this error you can actually just show on the screen.
yes,
So say, just hold on if you're with me. If you had a form and maybe that form was dynamic,
yeah,
and the developer doesn't know at what state that the form is in, the developer doesn't have to know. You
you
can
don't have
just
to
say
know it.
whatever you get rendered on the screen from whatever
Yep,
service that tells you what to render. You submit a request, and something happens with that request. We don't know why and everything and stuff, but all of a sudden there's some feedback, which is not really like, I like that this is more of a feedback more than an error. You get feedback, and you can actually just show this to the user. This is being recorded, right? I might want to send this link to a couple of people.
yeah, of course. So so let me tell you where this is coming from. Problem details. I didn't invent problem details. If you type in problem details for RESTful API according to ISO standard, do you see these tools ietf.org, right?
Mhm.
What it basically says in the stand, and it was very surprising because I was talking to a couple of supposedly seasoned engineers the other day, and they had no idea. They didn't know this existed even, which is kind of weird, but here we are. This is an example of a problem detail. It said you're supposed to give us like a URL, a statement, maybe a code, and then maybe give us a little bit of more details about what the problem is, right? There is invalid parameters, name, reason, age, blah, 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 right? When they're writing standardization like that, they're trying to tell you, here's all the possible ways you can express an error, right? But it wasn't that easy in the .NET world, right? It wasn't really that easy because you're supposed to have your exception your exception model itself has a property in it called data. And this is a rarely visited corner in the .NET world. Not a lot of people visit that corner, right? That data model in your exception, go here, source.net. I'm very glad you're finding this interesting. You know, because the more and more I hang out with people, it becomes harder and harder to impress them. You know, because I run out of tricks. But I'm very glad you find this something. So this is data thing. Let's see. And this data is supposed to be a property on the exception. Sorry, the exception comes from where? This is your generic exception, right? So that's the exception here. And this exception here, I want to show you the actual class so you can see. So this is the exception right there. So they have data containers, right, Josh? And inside the data piece, you'll find something very interesting. Any exception that you pull in will have this. Let me do it this way. Go back here. Let's go back into Visual Studio. So when you just for an example, right? When you go and say, you know, I want to be able, here's a public void foo, right? And you say you have an exception in here. This is an exception equal new exception, just like that, right? Exceptions are actually built, whoever wrote this wrote it with the intent that you need to carry some key value pairs in there that explains why things blew up. Unfortunately, iDictionary, the way it is, I guess the people who designed it with the .NET team, they made it way too generic. It's just extremely generic, right? What that basically means is that if you go like this and you say add, once you add a value in here, let's say Josh, I like the UI knows I'm trying to give you an example. So it's just going and saying, okay, foobar. Once you do it like that, it becomes problematic to go here again and say, oh, also foo has a problem called fizz.
Hmm.
You can't because the key has to be unique. And that's a problem, right? Okay, what is the other problem that you can have? You can't actually easily just enter a value in here. You have to collect all the possible values that you want to take, and you have to put them somehow in an array. So a new string array like this, and then you go in here and you have to explain that this is actually, so here's the problem. Your validations, you don't really know all the issues with your system at once, just like that. You don't, right? Why is that? Because validations can be structural, they can be logical, and they can be external. For instance, it is very possible that you can go and say student ID is invalid, but also the student, let's say the student date of birth is out of range.
Mhm.
So, and then you go back to the student ID and you say this student ID doesn't correspond to any record we have in the previous school. So you're running multiple different validations at different times, something that I call non-circuit breaking validations. Like the error that came out of that validation doesn't stop us from examining that model a little bit more.
Hmm.
Now someone might ask the question, someone might say, why can't I just, like the old school standard, we would, standard 1 point something, when something breaks, we just shut down everything. Say, sorry, name is invalid, deal with it. The problem with that approach is that if you are submitting, imagine that you're submitting a 20 field form, right? And you have as little as 10 properties or 10 fields in there that has issues. That means you have to go back and forth with the API. And every time you hit the API, you get a new issue. Every time. That's not a good user experience.
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of UIs are just like something went wrong, don't know why, contact somebody, you know. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You mean try, catch, throw,
Yeah.
and then let the API. Okay, so that's another problem, right? So this is a rarely visited. If you're building APIs for people watching us, if you're building APIs, really really care about that part, because how I implemented this part, if you go to Tarafu core, and how we take care of that is that if you look at, I wrote a library called exception with the X to make this really simple for you. So when you go into post validations like this, all you gotta do is just write your rules. Write your rules, And all of these rules will go through this this is a business rules engine that's less than 10 lines of code. And what this engine does is that it takes your rule, it takes the parameter and start upsert data list. So exceptions, Josh, will take care of collecting the issues. See, here's a rule here that says this is invalid if it's a text. Here's another rule here. These are individual independent rules, and we're putting all these rules inside of that business rules engine, and it's cooking up a statement for us, right? And then it throws this invalid exception. At the controller side, you go all the way up to the post controller, you will see here something very interesting. I evolved the RESTful Sense library to know and look into the data property of the exceptions are being thrown. Do you remember a long time ago we used to say, oh, just give them the inner exception message?
Right. Right.
This is done. We evolved way beyond that point, right? Now we're going and saying, here's the inner exception. Give that inner exception to BadRequest, and BadRequest will go find the right error and the right detail to kind of create that problem detail for you. So we're following the standard 100%. The RESTful
Can you
standard.
go into the bad request? Is that that's linked up to what we just saw, right?
Yep. Let me show you real quick. Let's go into source code of BadRequest. So here's RESTful Sense. Here's RESTful Sense. This is all test-driven, standardized, beautiful library. It's getting a lot of attention. So here's what BadRequest does. So let's just go here into the controller side, right? So under the controller side, you'll find something here called BadRequest. See that guy here? Look at this, Josh. Every single error has a specific link into the RESTful standard. Like you see, if you go here into unauthorized, it has a different link. The particular section of particular error details in the RESTful standard. Okay, but it doesn't just stop there. We're basically going and saying validation detail, right? But what happens is map exception data to problem detail. Let's go into that one. This is the one. This is your magic. This is where the magic is, right? Let's see where this guy is. There it is. So it goes and says, go through the exception data, and for every data point, map the key and turn the list that's coming in into an array. See?
So so we're still using that kind of inner exception data, but yet we can have multiple things that come in and it'll be linked up. Okay, so we'll get multiple feedback things. Hey, while you're here, hit period real quick.
Yeah.
Did you know you can do this?
A long time ago.
I didn't know it. So but I just learned about this or whatever and stuff. So like if we want to explore it, you're kind of exploring it, like searching or whatever and stuff.
This is how I review code. Yeah.
Yeah, you can pop up VS Code and stuff, and so I just I thought this is kind of cool. So you can kind of I don't know if you can. I mean, you have VS Code, so you can actually like go to definition and whatnot and stuff. So
Did you know that they started changing? Do you see how they changed the colors of the closing parens so it doesn't hurt your eye? You know where you're starting and where you're ending? Yeah, go ahead. Tell me.
That's there's a name for that, but yeah, it's some weird name, but it's like I don't know, it's like Rainbow Surround or something. I don't know what it is. Anyway, no, this is pretty cool because I think when we were doing it, we were explicitly typing out the messages, but then we were kind of like, well, is it really this message? Is it really that message? And it was kind of like it was verbose on our end, but then people were asking like, why are you going through all the trouble for it and stuff? And it was like, well, it makes it very clear to troubleshoot. It makes it very clear for our logs. And then it had the potential of showing really good feedback. But now you kind of close the loop and saying, well, now it's even easier to have a good message and stuff.
So do you remember that message you and I used to type?
Yep.
It's still there. It's still there, but we're adding problem details to it. And this problem details will allow us for internationalization. You can actually represent the API response and the error in the language that fits the header value of the consumer. So your API is the one doing the translation now. How beautiful is that?
This is awesome, and I think that it's I think there's tremendous value in it because I've worked with you and we've gone through logging our very specific details and everything and stuff. Do you ever get pushback to say this is too much? This is why would you go through this and stuff?
I was
What do you say
actually
to that person?
yeah. So here's the thing. I care more about being right than being done. You know that very well, right?
Mhm.
What is our motto since John Deere? Make it work, then make it right, then make it what, Josh?
Make it pretty.
Pretty.
Yep.
We've lived by that. That's like our motto, right? Some people will stop at make it work, and then people who come after them will suffer into making it right. And some people will make it work and make it right, which are very few people. Like the mass majority will make something work and then just move on, right? And then some fewer subsection of that will make it right. And then very few, a handful of people will make it pretty, will go that extra mile, right? It's not enough to get something out there in production and then come back later and clean it up. They actually take pride in that, right? Is it worth the trouble? I don't know. Do you want to spend 3 hours in the middle of the night trying to chase an issue? Or do you want your system to be self-sustaining?
Well, that's where I was kind of going with this. Maybe I'm looking forward to seeing the implementation because I think it's going to be even more polished than the last time that we worked on it. But I also
Oh
think
yeah.
there might be a good sales pitch that says, this is we're writing things with Blazor. Everybody hates JavaScript. Most of the time I do TypeScript or JavaScript during the day. But maybe the sales pitch was if your API can do this, if your API developer can do this, you can actually bypass your JavaScript developer. And how
Yep.
you can do that is because if you can give you this level of feedback, the problem details, then all the JavaScript developer has to do, they don't even have to handle the details. They just say, whenever there's an error, show the user what the issue is, and then the user can bypass the JavaScript developer and get to the API. So you can actually say, instead of having this weird, I'm not speaking from experience here, but instead
Yep.
of having weird JavaScript do weird things with string manipulation and trying to figure out what the API is doing, you can just say, hey, here's a basic form.
Uh-huh.
You send an API call. The API gives you feedback, and the JavaScript developer says, "My job's done. I'm going home." But then the user can say, "Hey, this UI guy sucks." But the API gave me enough details. I can go ahead and submit the request, or I can go ahead and change it, and then they could go ahead and submit a successful request. They don't have to make a support ticket, whatnot, and stuff. So I'm really interested to see how easy this is to set up, and then how we integrate it into the UI.
You don't have to worry about anything, It's the easiest thing. You know how much I care about engineering experience, right? Um, I just released a library a couple of days ago. It's called internal mock. It's gonna blow your freaking mind.
Is it weird to get this excited about exceptions? Is it like like that? Is I feel like this is we're on like a niche part of the internet right now. So
You know, I was having, like I said to you, I was having the discussion the other day, and people look at exceptions as like a taboo. No, no, it's an amazing opportunity for you to control the flow in a way that is clean,
Mhm.
right? It's just how exceptions were introduced to the world. Oh, bad. I had a lot of people once tell me this. Oh, it will never error out. Have you ever heard this before? Oh, it will never error out. You know. Anyway, let me just tell you the what does it take to set this up, right? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. All you have to do, see, I created two libraries, one called exceptions to help you kind of gather that details and build that business rules engine. And then I improved RESTful sense to take that exception and turn it into problem detail, wait for it, and when you receive it on the client side, it will turn it back into data. So you're just continuing where you left off. What do you think about that? Is
I
that
think it's
great?
pretty cool. We should group them all together and call it Candyland. Like where they have you bypass all the deals to take the slide. No, I think it. No, I think this is really powerful.
Thank you, Josh. I thought it would be useful. We continue to evolve. That's the point. And the word for everybody out there, if you look at your code 6 months ago and you feel that it's pretty much the same how you would do it today, then you're not evolving. And that's really, really important in our industry. Okay, my friend. So you saw the source code, you saw the story. It took a lot of work, you know, it just to put these links, find these links. It took a lot of work, but it's totally worth it. I'm not surprised that RESTful since has over 50,000 downloads today. It's a very powerful library. Now here's what we need to do, my friend. The problem detail is coming in from the API, right? I'm gonna put a breakpoint in there. I'm gonna intentionally disable some of our validations just to show you how this guy is coming in from the outside world, okay? So let's do that. So the API is still running. Let's just make sure the API, no, the API is not running yet. I'm going to walk you through the journey because it's really, really important. See, you and the people watching understanding how software works is more important to me than the software itself. I don't think people really understand that yet. You know, some people be like, oh, we're taking so long. I'm like, no, I already delivered my project. You are my project. The people that are listening to this are the project, right? Anyway, so let's just I'm gonna put a breakpoint in here. I'm gonna start a bad request.
You're sharing your screen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Coming there. Okay, just you know, boomer energy, right? So let's go. Let's go into this guy. I'm gonna have a validation error travel from the API all the way up to the UI and gets rendered on the UI side. And I want you to see every single step of the way. So I'm going to put a breakpoint on a try catch in here, and I'm going to go and say, okay, this is my invalid post exception. And we're going to look at this guy. And then we're going to see how the API respond to it. Also, at the same time, as the portal is running, here's the portal. Yes, a second here. Let's go back to the portal real quick, Joshua. Here's the portal. Let me revert that nonsense. This is just me. I was explaining to you just the story here. But where is our service? We have this foundation service of posts, and the foundation service is gonna catch an exception called bad request exception. Let's go back into this bad request exception. Here it is, HTTP URL not found, HTTP bad request exception. This is our guy. We're gonna pick up that guy and transcend its data. Do you see that? The data is still coming back. We're gonna take a look at that data and see what it looks like. The only thing I'm gonna do is that because it's all structural validation, I'm gonna disable that guy for now. That's on the UI side. Okay. So I'm gonna run the UI. I'm gonna intentionally post a. Actually, if you give me a second here, Joshua, I just wanna also make sure that our post view service is not doing anything with that data. There. Okay. All right. Have you been playing around with the have you been playing around with the hot reload recently? Works like a charm. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Okay,
I could nod and say yes, but I've been in TypeScript land, so I've been banished to the shameful land. So
let's fix that. Okay. So it's okay. I'm posting a bad request intention, like an empty post, and I expect the API itself to freak out at some point in time. So here's the API. This is the API, Josh. And if you look at the API, you will see that the API has a data piece in there, and this data is pointing you exactly to the issue and see it says content and content text is required. That's on the API side. Okay, let's go back to the UI side. So I'm gonna go back all the way to the UI here. Here's the UI. And on the UI side, we are putting a breakpoint here at this exception. Watch this. I'm gonna release from the API, the breakpoint from the API, and it's gonna travel. Here it is. So it's coming back to your portal, right? So let's see what the portal is saying, Joshua. The portal is saying, here's the data that came from the API. If you look at that data, guess what? Exactly the same error with the exact same details that you have.
we don't see the pop up, but I will trust that
Oh,
it's
that's
there.
right. Oh, sorry about that. Let's do a, if I do a quick watch, would you see it? Yeah, you do.
There you
Do
go.
you see,
Yep.
do you see the data? Look at this result view, boom, content. So it got translated
Mm-hmm.
from the API. Now you're continuing normally, right? Which basically means that if you detach your foundation service and stick the API foundation service in there that talks to the database directly, you don't have to change a thing because everything is already taken care of, right? Now here's the trick, my friend. We need to propagate. This is what we're going to do today. We need to keep going with that exception all the way up to the post dialog where we didn't handle any exceptions yet. So we're going to I'm gonna release this guy, and it's gonna blow up. It's gonna say, hey, there's an exception that happened. It's just basically going on the screen and screaming on the screen. It's basically saying, hey, we couldn't proceed with this. Here it is. Check it out. Here it is. This guy. Here's his. And then if I go and say, what is it, Josh? F12. There it is. And here's the issue that happened. Let me try this again. Post. Gonna hit a couple of breakpoint, but that's okay because we wanna. Here's the breakpoint. I love how when you have multiple breakpoints going, it's basically giving me the switching the screen for me. I thought that was pretty cool. So what do? We're swallowing the exception. We're not doing anything with it. Right? Now we want to take that exception with its details and point it to the UI component itself that has the problem. And then we're going to test something together after that. First of all, when an exception occurs, we're supposed to re-enable or enable the controls that we disabled originally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go write a test for that one. For people watching, this is, listen up very well. This is very rare stuff on the internet. This is the real deal. Am I lying, Josh? I don't think people. Okay, here we are. Okay, here we go. Okay, my friend. Let me just revert everything here. Okay, here we are. So let's go back to test land, right? Test render. There it is. So we are now handling exceptions in this case, right? I'm writing you a failing test. Are you ready for a failing test, Joshua?
Of course.
Okay, let's do it. Render exception. Okay, so this is a situation where the API that you're calling is causing trouble, and we need to deal with that trouble. Let's do that. Let's take care of this guy. Let's take care of all of this. What do you think? Should I write it from the top so people just see? Here, should render validation details on post. So what are we doing here? We have a post, whatever. And I am receiving an exception coming from the outside world that has some issues in it, right? Let's start small so we can have people see what's actually going on. Okay. So here's an exception. Let's go here and say var. What's the exception that's coming? It's coming from post view validation exception. That's a post view validation exception. New post view validation exception. How did I know that name, Josh? Because we're standardizing things, so it's obvious that you want to be able to, transcend, you know, and this is a categorical exception. That basically means we need another exception in here. Let's say invalid post view exception with some details in it. So this is new invalid post view exception. Now watch this. Because this guy inherits from this library, Josh, exception with the X. Watch what this guy can do for me. You can go here and say invalid post view exception dot add data. And I can add as much data as I want in there, right? So we can basically go here and safely we can see that's the creepy part. How does it know that the property is called content? I don't know. This is where it gets a little creepy, Anyway,
Visual Studio is going to start telling on you. But
yeah, I think we should go back into being Amish, Joshua. Hence I said back. All right. So you have a bunch of issues in here, right? And we want these issues that come from here, we want these issues to actually render on the screen. So we're going to actually test that some validation component is rendering all the issues on the screen on top of the big validation message. Fair? Is that fair? Okay. Let's create a random a random error message in here. This is key, I think, and this is if you do Control Alt Shift Control Alt, I think it's Alt Control Shift space, Control Alt Shift space. Nope. Hold on. Control. Nope, not Alt space. Control Shift space. Control Alt Shift space.
If you hit all the keys.
Yeah, yeah. Control Shift space, Joshua.
Okay.
Control Shift space pops up that little thing. Do you know what's my pet peeve? Is that if we're on Teams right now, it will open up another shortcut on Teams, which drives me nuts. I'll tell you that much. Okay, so this is params, like I can add a bunch of them, right? So I guess it's a good idea to actually create some sort of a randomizer that generates a bunch of random errors, right? How do we do that? Do you think there's a way to do that, Joshua?
Never seen a randomizer before.
Okay, so private, let's see, since this is higher priority, let's go ahead and say private static string array, right? And get random errors.
While you're doing
This,
that, the Teams thing, I feel like the Teams when you were like controlling the other person's screen worked like perfectly out of the box, and then all of
mhm.
a sudden you go to use it again, and it will just like I mean it'll like format someone's hard drive. You hit the wrong keyboard, a shortcut, and then things just disappear. You're like, what's going on? So
I know, right? So new mnemonic string word count. The word count can be anything as well. So let's get random number, and then I want get value in here. Get value, right? So what can I do here? I can go here and say, why don't I just say get random? Well, yeah. So so in here I can just go and do this int random count equal get random number, right? And inside that get random number, I can basically go and say return enumerable, range, start from 0 and count random count. And then in here, I'm gonna say select item, and then we want to go and say get random error message, and then map all of that into an array, into a string array, and we're done here. Okay. So now I can go back into my exceptions, and I can go and say, so for the content, we actually don't care. So this is gonna be some content, right? Because we really don't care what comes back, right? And expected control that in the trash. And then we want to basically go here and say array random error messages, get random error. Nope. What did I call it? Excuse me. Get random errors. Get random error messages. Error messages like that. Here we go. And then let's go back into our exceptions and get random error messages like this. And then let's see. So this guy can go in here, right? Because it's an array, right? And what else should we do? We need to call this expected, right? This is string returned error messages, naming convention, super important, random error messages, random error messages. And then also here's a string, and then we basically want to say expected error messages, and that's your returned error message. Returned error messages like this. Are you still with me, or are you falling asleep?
nope, we're here. Yep.
Okay. Okay, so this is the post view. This is exception. Great. We don't care really about the expected view. I can go here and say some content. Who cares? But we're gonna mock our dependency here, Joshua.
Yep.
To basically go and say when you call that post view setup service, here's a service dot add post view async. It is any, right? Because we don't care. Post view rows async, right? And this is your post view validation exception. Okay. So far, so good.
Mm-hmm.
What happens next? The dialog, visible should still be true, right? We know that. This is the button, clicked on the button, something crazy happened, and then is the post view equivalent to whatever we we're not really we don't really care about that part, right? But what we care about is that this add post to view must have been called at least once or exactly once actually, because that's where the error happened. Here comes the fun stuff, right? This is all great, good and dandy, but the fun stuff is that I want to make sure that when this error happens, first of all, I want to go here and say this dot post view dialog component dot instance dot text area dot enabled or visible. What did we call it, Josh? Six text area is enabled. Should go back to being should be true. And so is the button, and so is what else do we disable? Just these two, right?
Yeah,
Button.
I think we just disabled the input, we disabled the button, and then and then if it's successful, we close it. So I think obviously we want to have it still visible, and then we want to have both of the input and the button still enabled.
Yeah, the dialog button dot how did we disable the dialog button last time? Let's see, render dialog instance spinner also should be invisible. Dialog button disabled. There it is. I need these two. This one is already dead. So all of these text area. If I go here, did I say disabled on this one? Is enabled. So they give me all of this. Should be false, right? And this guy here also should be false. And this guy also should be false. So the dialog should be displayed. Text area is disabled, should be false. Dialog button is disabled, should be false. And the spinner is visible, should be false. Right? So far, so good. That's just a small step. That's just a tiny step. We still want to verify that the validations, the errors of the validations are showing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to do this now in the test, or do you want to make this one pass and then give it back to me and we do the
I
validation?
don't want to I don't want to wait. So let's do it now. I want to see it now.
Okay. So let's you just want to go. Okay. So here's what we're going to do here, my friend. We have two options. Either make the validation errors show within the component itself, which I personally not a fan of. I think it's garbage. Because if you do it this way, that basically means that, you're lumping together two different things that takes away the control from you. To be able to go and say, no, wait a second, I don't want it to work this way. I want to make sure that the I want to make sure that the validation information will be placed wherever I want it to be placed, which is one pet peeve I have with forms. What forms do is that they go and say, I'm going to dictate specifically where the errors will be displayed. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a good idea? Yeah?
I think it depends on what scenario. And so some of the things that are like the client side or the portal side, like validations, like if you can do them locally, having something pop up like right above or below the input, as long as it doesn't make the form jump around, isn't that bad because you're getting the immediate feedback. But I think we discussed a scenario. What if you submit a form that takes a while to process and then needs to come back to you? So if you are going to minimize that view, or you're going to close that view and come back to it, or hopefully your API responds immediately. And there's it works real well if you're only displaying one error, but we have the ability to give like better in-depth feedback. So now you're going to be cramped for space. So there might be a better option. What is that option?
Okay. So here's how I do this. Okay. Here is a validation summary component. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this validation summary component, I just put the back end of the front end for this validation summary component. So I'm going to go here and say this is a validation summary dot razor.cs. So far, so good. No harm, no foul. We're just building a component, right? Someone did a little bit of magic in the configuration to add the copyrights automatically, right? And I'm not, I wouldn't do it myself for a reason, but the reason why is that I want the standard to be in people's heads. I don't want it to be in some automation, but some of these things are too minimal. I don't really care about. Do you remember when I was talking to you about the exceptions and the problem details are coming in? What
Mm-hmm.
is the type of the data? Do you remember?
The type of the data? Well, the data was a tuple, like it was a key and then a list of values, right?
It was an iDictionary, remember?
Yep. Yep.
So let's do this. iDictionary validation data. So far, so good. So that's a parameter that will be passed in from the exception that's coming to us, right? So far, so good.
Mm-hmm.
What else do I want to know, Josh? For this validation summary, I need to tell it which key it needs to look for in that particular dictionary. So when you go and say, I want all the validation details for student name, right? It knows exactly which student name it needs to render. Okay? If you have the validation data and the validation key, I can now go up in here and create a property, right, of IEnumerable of strings, because they're all strings, they're just errors, they're for people, for human beings. And well, let's call it errors, right? And this errors is piece here is basically how we're gonna retrieve that data. We're gonna need our getter and setter to basically do something like this. Check this out. This dot validation data, assuming that this validation data is not null, and here's your key. It's the key from this guy as IEnumerable of strings. That's me basically saying, if you want to retrieve that data, because sometimes, like not every time you're gonna have data in the particular key you're looking for, right? So okay, so this is it. This is here like this, and then we want to put the setter. The setter is just as is. We basically want to go and say, I have I need this very same value, the errors that I have in here, set the value to it. The value is basically, it's just C# magic. You're basically going and saying whatever the value is set, that's the value that you're gonna be retrieved. Now, why is this guy mad? Let's see. IEnumerable, a non-generic type. IEnumerable cannot be used with type arguments. Why is it complaining? That's interesting. Let's see. Oh, it doesn't know about the generics yet. That's a very helpful message. So we have these errors. So people gave us the dictionary and they gave us the key, and we're gonna go look for that key. And whatever comes back from the other side, that's what we're gonna render, right? That's not enough. We still need to iterate over that, over these errors, right? This is where we're gonna use Pretty Blazor. Do you remember Pretty Blazor? Did you
Yeah.
forget?
Yeah. You
So,
don't want. We're gonna
yeah,
put our control flow in the library, so we're gonna be able to say we're just gonna iterate over this thing. Yep.
exactly. So Pretty Blazor. You don't want to iterate in a language that's different than the language that you're working with. There's your dictionary, and then you're basically going. I'm gonna evolve this library a lot, but let's just do this for now. If the errors is not null, like this, we can basically continue, and we need to iterate. So I think it's called iterations. Yeah, there it is. Right, iterations. Right, and inside these iterations, we basically want to go and say items, and the items is basically the errors that we just, the value errors. Yep, I think that's right. And then the context. This is something I haven't talked to you about before. Did you know that outside of the box, you can actually name the variable that you're going to be iterating on? That's what this context means.
Your first errors had the you need the two R's at the beginning.
Errors, like that.
That's called pair programming.
Yep, that's pair programming. Did you know that you can rename the variable? Oh, I forgot something. This is supposed to say match, right? Because if it's not a match, then there's nothing to do. It's like an if-else statement. Like a condition is an if-else statement, basically. If you do control KD,
Yeah,
that
and
base.
if you don't tell it the context equals error, you have to refer to it as this dot context or context, right? And by
Okay, and we want this to be a dotted list. We can make it prettier in a bit, but we want this for every single. Uh, we want this to be an unordered list, right? And then basically you're going and saying, I look forward to your help in making this a little bit, cooler. But that's our error. You see what I'm doing here? I'm basically going and saying iterate over these errors. And if it's not null, then go ahead and start spinning. And I need to improve a Pretty Blazor in a way that it has a nice adaptation. It looks like people really like it. I also planning to do something like a try catch equivalent, but Daniel Roth and Anderson already did something called what did they call it? Error in Blazor now you can encapsulate an entire component, and if this component errors out, it routes you to an error page.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. I think it's just is it just called our error route, or yeah, it's something very straightforward. But
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I have this validation thing going on. That basically means I can go back into my post dialog and create a new thing called exception. And this exception, my friend, is gonna be, this is the exception because that's your property on the component, and that's the property that we're gonna be iterating over and trying to see, how it's gonna work out. What you're gonna need to do though, because each one of those is gonna have its own kind of, validation summary. So this text area, I'm gonna put under it in here. I'm gonna put here a thing called, and this is the thing why I had this conversation with you about, do we do it in its own thing? What, here, this is gonna be text area validation summary, right? And that guy needs data. So what does it need? It needs from us a key, and that key is name of, right, post view dot content. No? What do you think? Or do I just type content in there?
no, we don't type content.
Uh, do you like it like this more?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, name of post view content. So that should do it. We just need the, I guess we need the model in here. How did it know, what if I did this? Hold on. Let's do something sneaky. Let's do this. What if I do, well, that's exactly what I did here, but how did it know the value of, okay, using .rafu .portal.web.models .post views. That should help it a little. Huh? Let's see. Name of post view content. Maybe I need to close the thing. That's why.
Ah,
Maybe. I don't know. It also needs the exception for us, right? Or what do you call it? The validation data, which is basically the exception, right? And then the data that's outside of that exception. Right? Now, why is this guy freaking out? Because this guy doesn't exist yet, right? So I want to go here and say prop validation summary, and this is going to be text area validation summary. I have a code rub task for you. uh, did I say a text area validation summary or content? Oh, it should be content validation summary because it's not the text area. It's the property that we're targeting specifically, right? I'm gonna put that guy in here. This is content validation summary.
so do we need a specific validation summary for each like
That's the thing. That's the problem, right? That's the thing that we're trying to solve. We basically want to go and say, do you want it to be embedded? So your component itself will go here and say, oh, while you're at it, give me any errors in here. But to me, that's like having a broker calling a broker. But I can be persuaded. Like I'm not sold a one way or another. Also, we should call this not validation summary. It should be called validation summary base. But my pair is asleep. So my bear is basically holding up
my
his
mind is
eyes.
being blown. I'm just gonna keep it up.
Oh yeah, is that what it is? Okay. All right. So here, name of, and then post view dot content. I think that should do it. Control KD. Okay. What do you think about that, Joshua? Does that sound like a good deal?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that would make this mad is that we want our post view dialog to say validation summary base. Now this guy should be happy. Happy camper. Okay, let's build this and see if these are all assumptions that we're doing. Actually, I'm not even gonna add that guy in there. Like again, my pair is asleep. I want you're gonna be the one adding that data yourself, my friend, right? What is this guy mad at us, huh? You know, errors because it wants validation data. The errors. Did I misspell errors again, Joshua? You know what I think it is? It doesn't understand. It doesn't rename the thing for you. Really
Mm.
dumb. Do you remember this problem that we had before with, you know, Blazor acts a little funny with when you rename the files of the
Hmm.
components that you're working with. Do you remember that? I
Yep.
think it's kind of fixed, Josh. It's not 100%, but it's kind of fixed. Okay, so I'm taking that part away for a reason, because it's test-driven development, right? And then I'm gonna go back to my test here into the exceptions area. And the expectation here, Joshua, is that the when this error occurs, we should validate that your this.post dialog dot instance dot validation summaries dot data validation data should be equivalent to the expected error messages. Do you agree?
Yep. And that'll expect that the data is equivalent. And then do you have a test for something that shows up on the screen?
Well, if your content validation summary is not null, that means it showed on the screen. You remember the
Yeah.
ref?
Okay, gotcha. Okay, because if you yes, if you don't
If it's not null, then it's on
yep,
the screen.
yep,
And if it has the right data, then the data is rendered.
yep.
Or at least that's where we are now at this point in time in the seventh phase of the history of the standard. You are a member of the sixth chapter. So why do we have two though? Why do we have two failing? Should render validation. Yo, hold on. Should disable control and display loading submit. Why is this guy mad? Because object reference of what? Object reference of what? Let's see. This guy spinner is visible. Spinner is visible should be true. Did we forget something here in our test? Because I also noticed that the spinner wasn't showing. Do you have code that you haven't pushed yet?
No, I actually have a failing test on mine, so I thought maybe you were ahead of me a little bit, but let's see if this
Okay,
can.
you gotta need to fix both of these tests then. Okay, is that okay with you?
I suppose.
Here you go. Go to town, son.
All
Fail.
right.
It's time for you to write some code, Josh. Wow. Wow,
Wow.
wow, wow. Wow, you're gonna be writing some code. Yeah, there is something. Hold on, Josh. I'm doing a sync. There's something in here that is in between. It's saying I am not up to date. Did you push something while I'm talking, son? Is that what you
Nope.
did?
Nope, I did not.
Wow, you did not push something while I'm talking. Okay, it's still hanging out. Yeah, fix it. Go for it. This is Josh. Make your screen a little bit wider.
Wider.
Look at StreamYard. It's yeah, there you go. And then do you need to increase your font or something?
I don't know how to do that.
You increase the screen resolution to 150%.
I don't think I can just on the way it's set up. I'll have to. Can you do? We'll have to see if the font comes up.
Why? You did it every time.
I'm doing things differently. We're evolving. We're past that point. You can see it, right? I can
Sounds
see
so-
it.
sounds to me like you're going in the wrong direction there, Joshua. Yeah,
Oh,
I can see it. Go
okay. No, we'll bump it up for Mr. Hassan's eyes. Okay.
ahead.
Okay, so this is the spinner to be null, and it's complaining about the this guy. So we will go into.
You just need to create the spinner thing, like the UI for the spinner. I think we did initialize it.
So spinner is here, and then spinner is this guy, and then the spinner is here. So the test was actually saying what now?
Run all the tests. Let's see.
I did. So these are the two that are these are the two that are failing, and it says the post dialog upon instance spinner to be null, but it should be is.
Click on that red line.
Where
You see the red line? Click on it.
did
On
it
the
take
red
me?
line.
Yeah,
Yeah. So this guy says spinner should be null. Should display dialog of if open dialog is clicked. So does it initialize the spinner anyway and then makes it visible? Okay, that's fine then. You should just say spinner dot is visible should be false. That's all.
spinner dot okay dot is visible
Hmm.
should
Although I thought like interesting. I thought it doesn't render it at all. Well, it's not wrapped up with a conditional. Yeah, it should be false. All right, run that guy. Let's see. Do you see trees of green?
yay and red roses too.
Yeah. You know that song is about test-driven development, right?
Yeah, I think that's it was directly inspired. It was like a muse or something.
I see trees of green, red roses.
Okay, so the next one we have is
Wait, he even says, I watched them bloom for me and you. That's pair programming.
okay. Why is my test freaking out?
Because you didn't pull latest?
Oh, how would I have that in the? Did you push it another one?
No. Run again, build again, do
Run,
something.
run again.
Run again, on again, off again. Josh, the song actually says, I watch them bloom for me and you. Like, I give you a failing test and you give me a failing to like blooming.
You mean blow up, right? Blow up. Okay.
I watch them blow up for me and you.
Okay, so we want to come back to our post dialog, and so when we post, we want to say. So now we wanted to wrap this in a try catch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Try. You're gonna yell at me, but we will.
Yeah, keep going. You're fine. Keep going. Well, you would want to handle that specific exception though, Joshua.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. So basically we want to say that we're gonna try these guys. And we're not gonna close the dialogue, so everything can go up to the
Into the
deal.
try.
Yep.
Right. Man, you're tired
Oh,
today, aren't you?
I'm mind blown, man. So okay, so and then we want to find this specific exception. So we're gonna do the invalid post view exception. When
Yeah, so you're catching the post view validation exception.
that's right. Yeah, because the wrapper one. Yep. Post view validation.
And then you're assigning the inner exception to your exception property.
Yep.
Right?
Okay. So then we want to
Just type in this dot exception,
Yeah.
this dot exception, and assign the inner exception of your post view validation exception to it.
I was gonna go in the order of the test, but we can do that. Okay.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Now you want to enable whatever was disabled before.
Yeah. So then well, this was oh yeah, because this already disabled it first because then it got to this. I got you. Okay.
That's fine.
This dot
Just
text
copy all of them and just do the do. Do the do. Enable. Do we have enable?
is enabled, but that's
No,
not
no, it should say enable.
dot
Type enable anyway.
enable.
Open, close parens. Why is it being weird?
We have a disable. We do not have an enable.
I timed it to write an enable one.
We must write as Hassan would say, forge forward in the weird number. Okay.
What are you saying?
Exactly what you do. Okay. Okay, so now we have enable. Okay, so then this dot
Mhm.
dialog. You have slow internet. You have
No,
you keep going
no, I'm just disabling the camera to get tea.
to get
Magic.
what? To get what?
Like every time I turn off the camera, a new cup of tea shows up.
I'm gonna talk on my camera. See, does it work on my end? How do you get that feature?
You're gonna have to talk to your camera. I have the best camera in the world.
So many things I could say that. Okay.
I don't know about your camera. All right, Joshua. So what else do we need to do, my friend? That's it. We just need to basically just say, and don't forget to assign a ref.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, is it? That's one of my favorite things about tests. Is that at this point you don't have to say, is that it?
Love
Because
your
you can just
brain.
run the test.
Yeah, see, it's saying what? Why is it
Also, did you
saying
mean to have two spaces up here?
no?
Is this part of the standard? Is this? Are we?
No, that's not the standard. Not the
Okay.
standard.
Just
What's up with the spinner?
what's better?
It says I expected the spinner to be
Oh, false, but found true.
yeah, so scroll down. What did you do? Spinner. Oh, you forgot to do the spinner.
This dot spinner dot hide. There we
Hide.
go.
Does it even has hide? Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. So now you're so the reason why, just so you guys understand what Josh does, even if you write a failing test, he doesn't care. He will try to make your test fail one at a time to make sure that your requirement is actually a requirement. Not here, Joshua. Put it under the text area.
Okay. Yeah, and that's actually like it seems kind of like lazy, but it actually
It's
you
not.
wanted it
It's very
under the
good.
content right here, right?
Yeah, right
Yep.
under the
Yep.
no, right under the text area because it
Okay.
belongs to the text area, right?
Oh yes, yes, yes. Okay. Yeah, and it actually came out of actually being burnt several times of having not being able to like when you test something that your test doesn't actually test what you want it to test, and so
Yep.
then you get in trouble. So
Yep.
I just completely like it's almost OCD level keep running the test, and it drives us on nuts.
I love it.
Uh,
Okay, let's put a ref there. And the ref is content validation summary. Why don't you just write
content
content validation summary like a normal person?
content.
No, without the double quotes. If you put it between double quotes, they'll think it's a string. There.
Okay.
And then what else we need, Joshua? We need the key. The
Yep.
key is just content, right?
Isn't it called key?
Yeah, all uppercase. This is C
Yes,
sharp.
yes, yes.
We're not Java people. JavaScript. JavaScript. That video. JavaScript. Did
And do
you know? Did
we
you
just
know
call it content, right?
No, pick up that post view.content to name of. Just write content for
Yeah,
now.
this
That's
guy.
okay. Yeah, lowercase the E and Y though.
You said all uppercase.
Uppercase key.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the
So,
last thing.
you gave me crap about the double quotes, but you have it here. But it's because you have the at sign, so it knows that it's
JavaScript.
JavaScript. Okay, and then the other one was the data, right?
Yes. I think it's called errors or something.
Ah, yes, that's right.
Do control space. No, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
No space should pop up a dialog for you, like an autocomplete or something.
Yeah, it pops up, but then it doesn't have the
Should it should be saying validation details or data, or just go back to the base component, see what it says.
there's a data here. So the but it was like a data. Okay, well, let's go to the base component.
JavaScript. Did you know that JavaScript was written in 7 days? Did you know that JavaScript was not written in 7 days? I think you're in the wrong place.
Oh yeah. But
What
validation
changed?
data.
What changed here? Oh, you added the additional function. That's right.
That's a key.
Val
There
validation
we go.
data. Yeah. No, no, son. Validation data. Yeah.
Seeing if you're awake. Just this guy. He's just always sleeping.
JavaScript equal, and then
Oh.
you wanna type in
Oh yeah.
at exception $ dot data.
At exception.
Question mark dot data.
Awesome.
The Elvis notation. Now, why does it have a funny color? What's
Oh,
up
it's
with
because
that?
it's not in. We're not using it in the deal, right?
No, you have bases up there.
Hmm.
Just build. Let's see what happens. JavaScript. But we decided to use vanilla JavaScript because it just made sense. We used promises, but then we went back to callbacks.
You memorized that whole thing, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I have a scary memory. I have a scary memory.
There it goes. Okay, now we have a, but it's still a weird color. We're gonna run the test anyway.
Yeah, run the test and let the test tell you the truth. JavaScript. Ah, so it's saying your content is whack. Why does it say that? Because expected summary data to be, oh, I think this is a type issue because this is a dictionary entry. Five contains 5 items less than. What? Hold on a second. Let's go back to the test real quick, Joshua.
Okay.
What's the type on? uh, So the type here is a string array, right?
Yep.
And if you scroll down to the type of the validation summary, what should that be? Close that test window for a second, son. I can't see anything. So we basically went and said, oh, the validation data. What's the type of the validation data, Joshua? Is it an IEnumerable or something?
iDictionary.
iDictionary?
Yep.
Then do this. Go back to the exception and just type dot data in there, and that's it. So do control minus, pick up the post validate invalid post view exception, and just type dot data in there. Go back to the test, bro. Back to the test. So pick up that invalid post view exception
Yep.
and just put it in the equivalent as
I gotcha.
dot data. Java dot data. So this way you're validating that you just passed the right data over. Now run the runnies.
Awesome.
Now we need to run it, right? And we need to validate it. Do you have the API running?
No.
I don't think you even need the API. Just run the app and just click post and see what happens. Because you already have validations going on your post view, right? It's going to give you back problem detail with or without the API response. But I'm going to show it to you with the API response because it's much more fun.
Much more fun.
Where is the screen? JavaScript. You have a screen?
I think that guy has like screenwriters or something because he covers enough languages and he always gets the one developer from whatever language it was to say, as a developer of this language, he's 100% correct.
Yeah, or maybe he's just been around for a while. Like, poor guy's been abused in the tech industry enough.
He's just
And
showing his battle.
yeah, he speaks about it with so much passion. It tells me that he's gone through it. You know, I don't know if the people watching us know about this, but it's hilarious. You know, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna post
Okay, post without entering anything.
Un- unhandled exception.
You put the right.
Unhandled exception.
Give me the code, Josh.
Yeah, that's probably because the API is not responding because I'm only catching the validation, and so then it's not throwing the right exception.
Okay.
I
Did
did.
you okay. All right, my turn. Let's see what exception is it emitting first, and then we'll take care of it. I think this exception model needs to be initialized somehow, but we'll see.
Oh.
Oh, that's just a Microsoft data package thing or other. JavaScript. Okay, so I'm gonna click the button, and here's the error that I have. This guy key cannot be null. So you didn't pass the right key, son. That's the problem.
Uh-oh.
So let's see here what's going on.
Oh, so it's actually on the okay.
And also we need to fix our test to do that. I'll get back to you on that one. But basically, this post dialog. Yeah, you didn't say name of. That's the problem. I did I did say put name of in there, didn't I? I did. Right? Yes? Okay, let's run this again. We're gonna need to add 2 tests for this. JavaScript. Okay, so this is done. Click post. And here's an error. Check it out. You see it?
Ooh.
Oh yeah. Look, look. Now let me tell you this. This error, this validation error that's coming here, it's coming from your post view service, right? I'm gonna intentionally change something in the API and disable your structural validations in your portal and show you how you get exactly the same result. Do you want
Okay.
to see it?
Yep.
Let's do this. So I'm gonna go back here. This is the whole point of this session. This is all I wanted to show you today, actually. You know, let's go back to this guy. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go here and say, okay, the structural simple validation that PostViews is doing, I'm gonna take care of that here temporarily, and I'm gonna take care of that in here temporarily. So that means the error that will be coming back will be specifically coming back from the API, right? And I'm gonna just to be 100% sure, I'm gonna make the API intentionally return a very specific different message, so we know that we're actually talking to the API. Okay, because I could just be fooling you, right? Or maybe running a different version or whatever the case may be. So in the validation section here, you know where it says text is required? This area here, I'm gonna say here text is required by Josh McCall. So this is specifically coming to you from that API. Hot reload, the API will come back to life that fast, and then we will go into, oh yeah, hot reload also not just for UI stuff, it's running for both, right? Now that we disabled the validations on the portal, all our validations are coming from the API. Structural, logical, whatever, right? So now if I go back in here and do this and click post, moment of truth.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it taking so long? Did I put a task delay there? Shouldn't be taking that long. Something is up. Let's see. Maybe that hot reload was a bad idea, Josh.
It's a little cold today.
It's a little cold today, right?
It must be the Toros.
And I put it in the post service, so I know I'm in the right place. Now let me go back here and do it again. Oh, why? Let's see. There is your post portal. So this add post view is done. They're basically just transcending bad data through the system. And this is post services done. So this is done and this is done, right? By the way, just a weird thing that it just hit me. Why I post view? No, it is fine. Okay. Okay. So this is the add post, and this is the post service, and it's basically going through the. Oh, did I forget an exception breakpoint anywhere? No, I did not. Okay, so let me rebuild this real quick.
Did you have it commented out on the delete call or on the post call? You were the way you were scrolling through it. I thought I didn't see it roll.
Oh, really? Let's see.
It says
Oh, you're
delete.
right.
Yep.
You're right. But it should. Okay, we'll get back to that one because that's also supposed to also render that, even if it even if the error
Mhm.
message didn't come from there. So we need to look into that for a second. But let's just go here. And I need that API error to come, that validation error to come all the way from the API. So if I click post, is that what it is? Maybe I'm not, am I pointing at the right thing? I did post it earlier in this session against the right API, right? I thought I did. Let's see here. That's validated on the API side first. There's your post view. If I go into a, a post API post, try it out, take out all that garbage, and just put it here. And then basically let's do this. And if I click execute, give me a validation error. Text is required by Josh McCall.
Mhm.
That's great, right? So far, so good. Now, what I want to do, so I know the API is running, and the API is running on 44.33.6. Okay, let's go see what our portal is running against. Here is your app settings, 44.33.6, right? That's
Mhm.
your URL. And did I miss anything else? Just trying to think here out loud. I think I might just forgotten to, because it just said, do you want to stop debugging? So it must have been breaking somewhere. It must have been,
Which would explain the spinner.
which would explain the spinner, but I don't see a breakpoint anywhere though. So there used to be, so here's a pause button. The pause button tells me where it is, and it's just saying I'm stuck here at running. That's odd. Why is it doing that? Let me run it as a, let's see, debug, run portal web. Uh, let's run it as, do I run it on IIS Express? Let's do that. Something is funny with my build because that guy just responded fine. So what happened, right? So let's see if the if F12 can give us anything insightful about this. So post elements, nothing. I wonder if we're not catching the right exception though. Maybe that's what it is, Josh. Let's go back here. Go back to the portal. Post dialog. Where's your try catch? Is this guy? Okay. Just for all intents and purposes, I'm gonna go here and say, give me this guy here. Okay. And I'm gonna put a breakpoint on this guy here just to see
Should
which
it be? I mean, it's going to be a validation exception, and it's not going to because the inner exception is going to be the bad request, right?
just hang on with me.
Okay.
Let's just see what this is. Okay. So let me refresh that guy. Post again. Did I get any errors?
Well, your breakpoint it looks like it has a problem. So can you hot? Do you have to hot reload this, or do you have to?
Yeah, you're right.
There you go.
Good catch. Yeah. There you go. By the way, it shows a nice icon when you do hot reload now. Okay, so what exception? So Okay, post view dependency validate. Because it's coming from downstream. It's not. That's right. That's right. Hold on. That's right. And we will handle that dependency validation as well. But that's what it is, because it's a dependency validation. We were handling here, assuming that the validation is coming from the post view service, right?
Mhm.
But we still had to write a test. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Now that error, I can guarantee you this. I'm gonna put me quitting my job and going to work as a greeter on Walmart on that part. This is the hell that I'm gonna die on. Are we ready? Post.
This will be the first video that you edit.
There it is.
Yay!
Fixed is required. How crazy is that, Josh? Like this is coming from all the way down from your API. Now, ideally, the dream is just for you to understand. If you are in a microservices architecture, is it okay if I show you draw IO, or are you?
Of
No.
course.
Okay.
It wouldn't be
I was literally explaining this to a guy on GitHub. He has some questions for me, about the standard. And I said to him, if you submit a registration form, you are entitled to determine which one is the critical path and which one is not, and you let your user understand that even though the registration is completed, that the library card processing didn't succeed. So there's aggregation on a non-circuit breaking issues.
okay.
So let me just tell this. You know how I talk? Did I talk to you before about the fractal pattern?
Yep,
The
yep.
standard is talk about that. Okay, fractal pattern. So imagine if you have multiple microservices like this, Josh, and your UI is calling your gatekeeper, right? And your gatekeeper is emitting the errors that has been aggregated by your orchestration service in your microservice architecture. And this exception library is allowing you to aggregate all these responses into one unified exception. So while your end user is thinking that the error is coming from one place, may as well be on the portal itself, it's actually aggregated from multiple different microservices and transcended through an orchestration service pushing through, and it's rendering this way. How beautiful is that? Is that nice?
It is nice, and I have questions.
Mm.
So it could be the fact. So like you had your user registration, and then there was a library card. Like maybe you don't need a library card if you're always going to do the virtual checkout. So like then the library card is a nice to have. So would you have in that scenario you could have a successful registration, but also show an error that was so basically you could return back a 200 or 201, but yet still have feedback based on some auxiliary event that doesn't really matter. But hey, just so you know, this
Yeah,
had a problem.
yeah.
Um, and so you could then have like you're calling it non-circuit breaking events. So it's kind of like the when you go to sign in for things and it says complete your registration form. Like we thought we would be able to process all your information. Turns out we can't validate some things or whatever. You now have a successful login, but we want some more information from you and whatnot and stuff. So you can have and you're saying this can come from one to many different sources, all aggregated in one area, and then you present that to the user as kind of one unified area and stuff, right?
Should I? Okay. So here's the thing. Have you ever heard of error 206?
No.
So 200 meaning we succeeded, right?
Yep.
What's 206, Joshua? 206 is the quantum state. It's the hybrid state between success and failure. Let me tell you about this as well. HTTP status code 206. Better listen up. We learned this in college. What does this say? What do you think? Did you know about 206?
I did not know about 206. I've never seen a 206 before.
There's a lot of stuff that I want to share. Anyway, so this code is specifically meant for a partial success. Like partially, that a part of this request have actually succeeded, but the rest of it did not. And oh Josh, we'll talk about this. Okay, there's so much stuff, man. There's so much stuff, I don't know what to say. But anyway, so there are two things that you and I need to wrap up. on this task before we call it done. Okay. So you already pushed the code and it's passing, right? There's no change there. I'm not going to change anything. There are two things that we need to validate. First of all, we need to validate that the proper key was passed into the validation summary. I'm going to type it here in your WhatsApp so you know. For one, key, proper key was passed into validation summary. Okay, the number two things, we need to generate more randomized keys to ensure filtering. Ideally, I don't care because the filtering is happening on the base component. Like the actual filtering is actually going on the base component. But since we're not able to mock these base components at the moment, like I talked to Eagle, about this, and he said, well, you're gonna have to kind of do a little bit of work around mock and all that kind of stuff. Now, technically, we are in this hybrid state where you're basically doing integration tests, right? Halfway there, right? What do you think? You're just happy that you learned about 206. Is that what it is?
Yeah, no, and you're saying filter is basically you're getting the whole error deal, but you only want to get the error for the specific content and everything and stuff. So,
Yes.
um, I guess I was thinking of a scenario. So basically, what we kind of looked at is so before the API would just throw out some garbage, the UI would have to decide what errors to display, and it's basically hard coded. Then we moved. You and I had previously had a validation error or some kind of error on the API, and then a corresponding one on the front end, and then but still the front end had to know how to display that information. Now, because we have the standard or the different
Problem
categories
detail.
of exceptions, we set up the pipeline or the data flow between the back end and the front end. And now any message that needs to be updated, say like, hey, we keep getting our users sending the wrong information, and you say like, submit a correct email, and they keep submitting their Gmail, then you say no, dummy, your Microsoft alias, like, or your company alias. They will then, like, without touching the UI, that new message that's more better for the user will just flow through your system. Is that right? And
Yep.
then you can you probably can't change the key. The keys can't quite be dynamic, right? What if you say the content on your form, you probably can't change the key, can you?
I am so happy you asked that. So it's embedded in the pure contract. So two things. You can change the key as long as the model, listen, as long as the model that's coming back and the exceptions, remember that every service does mapping, right? It does a little bit of mapping. It's receiving HTTP bad request exception,
Mm-hmm.
and it's mapping it into local invalid student exception with an external dependency categorical validation exception, right? Now, if you decide that you want to display a different model for whatever reason, then you are responsible for aggregating the exceptions into the proper key from that service onwards. There's a solution for it. So let me explain. You have a student model that's coming back from the API.
Mm-hmm.
The student has first name, middle name, last name. So far, so good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what you're displaying is a different student model that has full name. It doesn't have first name, middle name, last name. Then you are required as a service, of a view service, to aggregate and mush together these three keys
Mm-hmm.
errors and ship them out.
So that
It's
would be on
possible.
that would still be on the view service. You could still do
Yeah,
it, but it would
yeah,
be on the view service. Okay, that
yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
Ideally, you would really gonna have to have the discussion with me because I am a big proponent of pure contracts. Like whatever have you ever seen me do DTOs?
Mm-mm. No.
Why? Why is that? Why I don't do DTOs? When 99.99% of the .NET world and outside of the .NET world they do DTOs because they think they're dumb. I think that you need to stay, pure and simple. You know how I win the argument with DTOs? What do the people that talk about DTOs say? They say that, there are fields that your API is going to be responsible for generating and persisting, like audit fields. right? How do I win the argument? I go and say, what do you do when you do a migration and you want to maintain the data of the dates on these models? What do they say, Josh? Oh, then just insert it with a SQL script. This ends the conversation immediately. Why is that? Because that means you're bypassing the very API that you created.
Mm-hmm.
Now, watch what happens when I start enforcing the new section in the standard, which is duplex validation. Like you're validating in and you're validating out. What that basically means that if you enter a student with proper information and it goes through the API and the API persistent in the database, and then some clown goes and change the data in the database from the back end while
Yep.
it's going out, it's going to throw corrupted data exception.
Yep. I was just gonna say clowns with SQL scripts. SQL clowns.
Oh, let me just go in the database and flip that infuriates me so bad because what happens is if you change the state on a model in the database, you don't know what the other orchestrations that needs to happen that changes 3 different other things.
Mm-hmm.
I think microservices, sorry, FIM2 service or Lambda, serverless architecture have won that war and actually got so popular because people don't just know how to keep their hands, next to them when it comes to touching the data. You're not supposed to touch data at all. That's why you build an API. So all the management and the access of the data, the number one rule in microservices architecture, you can't have 2 microservices accessing the same data source. You just can't. It's a violation. If you want to access the data source, then you have to have a guardian on that data source, which is another microservice, and then every other microservice access. Why is that? You don't want to run into locked exception, overriding each other, having different rules. Now I'm taking that rule up a notch and I'm saying machines, network, or people should not access that database because people just can't keep their hands away from the SQL database. You know what we should do? We should just make the databases encrypted so they're not human readable. So nobody would just know which is a
Blockchain.
blockchain. I
Yep.
swear to God, man. The other thing I wanted to say about is that, I guess there's a reason for it. Like, there's this NACHA compliance thing that basically says you can't have personal user information at rest. So if you're persisting data in a system at rest, you should not have the data be human readable. We should make all the data like that. No clown could just come in and be like, ooh, let me just flip that. Let me tell you something funny that happened the other day. So I have this dear friend of mine, right? And she was telling me about, well, the data's bad. I'm complaining about the data. And what people said to me is that, she said, what the engineers said to me is that, well, the data's bad, but it's consistently bad, though. But it's consistent, though. So as long as it's consistently bad, then it's good. Joshua, always a pleasure to hang out with you, brother. I know you're a little tired. It's a little late over there. It takes a lot of, love and compassion and friendship just decide to kind of, come in and hang out with me over your weekend, family time and all that. I appreciate you. Thank you also for accommodating my uh, 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 religious habits of having to push an hour late. I really appreciate that.
You
Usually
get
we
breakfast, I get a midnight snack. It works out.
Yeah, I'm gonna come visit you soon. Okay, I'm gonna come visit you and say hi to you, and we're gonna eat a lot of food. Okay. Thank you so much, Joshua. You have a wonderful night, my dear friend, and I wish you all success and happiness. Do you have anything else before I wrap up? Anything from your side?
No, I think this is pretty cool. It's cool to see what you've been working on and how things have evolved. So until next time, I'm looking forward to it.
If you want to be really mind blown, please look up internal mock. It's gonna blow your mind. Internal mock is actually, let's throw that at you. Why not? Just gonna be 5 minutes. Let me ask you something, Josh. We do test how our services operate if they throw a generic exception, right? How do we
Mm-hmm.
do that? How do we do that today? How do we test how our service react if you throw a generic exception?
We just say when you call a random method, we'll just say throw any exception, or just new up an exception.
You go find your dependency and you say throws and you just put
Mm-hmm.
the exception.
Yep.
What if you are in a situation where you have a service that basically calculates tax, and it doesn't have any dependencies? How do you test that?
You'd have to mock your math library or something. It would be anything that was dependency injected, but it's not dependency injected because it would be any kind of using library that would be in the standard. I don't know how you do it. You'd have to separate it out you'd have to write more code to test it, which is the number one rule against testing.
What if I wrote list code to test it?
Oh, I thought you said Lisp code. I am tired. Okay, less code.
List.
If you wrote less code to test it, how are we doing that? So you say in one method, no external dependencies, only using like system types. So no dependency injection, no like interfaces.
Ah.
This might be a silly interview question, but I don't know. How do you?
Oh, I hope to God that nobody asks anybody, because it took me a long time to figure it out, and you know, um, just a lot of conversations with the community and stuff like that, and then finally, a good brother, his name is Mabruk, he pointed me out to a library called Aspect Oriented Programming Library. It does basically patching. So while your method is running, you're adding code in it dynamically on the fly.
This is kind of like Chaos Monkey or whatever and stuff, right?
It's definitely monkeying around. It's
Yeah.
like Kailu said, it's hacking. But what it basically does, this is a new concept. So, okay, so this guy went and created aspect-oriented programming. That's great, right? I took that idea and I added on top of it a new concept called hybrid mocking. What that basically means is that a service that doesn't have a dependency depends on itself. So we need to find that dependency within that service, that private method that you're calling, and we mock it. So let me show you.
I was gonna say, do you have an example?
Are you ready to be mind blown?
Mm-hmm. You're mocking a private method, which by definition is not supposed to happen.
Yes. So check this out. So I'm working with these folks on OData Neo and all that kind of good stuff, right? So we're basically going and saying, okay, here's OData Neo, and we need to write a service to basically allow us to, I'm basically rewriting OData from scratch, right? So here's a crazy situation for you, Josh. You have this situation here where you have this service. You're gonna love this. You're gonna love this a lot. You have this service here, right? This service, it doesn't have any dependencies. There's no injections, right? So all that it's doing, it's going and taking an OData query and it's tokenizing it. It's turning it into tokens. Are you with me?
Yep.
So I need to see how my service would behave if a generic exception happened, like out of memory exception, for instance. There is no dependencies here. How do you throw an exception? Check this out. Given, when, then. Cool?
Mm-hmm.
I'm basically going here and saying here's some exception. So far, so good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see how this service in here have no external dependency, but it has within itself methods that it depends on to get work done.
Mm-hmm.
Even though these methods themselves, they're just going and saying, hey, validate that it's not null. That's all they're doing. Look at the implementation. I'm going to mock this method, Josh, on the fly. Watch this. This.service, right? So this is our tokenization service that we're testing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Check this out. Mock method name, right? What was the method name that I'm looking for? It's called validate O token query, right? Watch this. Throws exception. Done.
My head hurts.
Wait. So
See,
that basically means I can go and write an action in here and say tokenize action equals this dot service. So this is, I'm testing the whole service then, and the service saying tokenize, and I'm passing in some query in there, whatever that query may be. It doesn't matter. So far, so good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means I can go here and say, when this service exception is thrown, assert that this guy is throwing an O token service exception like this. O token service exception. Right? That's it. How complicated is that?
Yeah, you didn't set up any additional helpers or anything. And you have to give it the string because it's a private method. You can't access it by doing um, by accident accessing it through the service. How does this work? Why does this work?
Hmm.
So the 1,000 line private, like the service that can't ever fail, you just pick a random method name and say forcefully fail and see how it recovers, right?
Yeah, I'm patching it on the fly. So I created a new library. It's called internal mock. And this internal mock does exactly that. It picks up, I actually recorded 3.5 hours from the moment I started thinking about it to the moment I published it on NuGet. It's gonna blow your freaking mind. It's gonna blow your mind out of the water. This is evolution.
I'll
This
have to
is
look at it. It's a little late. My brain
it's a,
hurt.
I threw a lot of stuff at you today. So validation going through the API, 206, and now I'm throwing internal mock at you. That's just not fair, right? That's just not fair. Anyway, thank you so much, Joshua. I appreciate you almost 2 hours in. By the way, guys, just for you watching, if I wasn't recording, normally Josh and I would talk for like an hour before the video and then another hour after the video just to catch up. This is more, it just so happens that he likes software engineering and I like software engineering, so we just hang out, and it just so happens that we talk about things that people could actually take advantage of. But in general, I may as well just call it the hangout with Josh McCall because that's really all that it is. What happened to my camera?
You finally realized what we're looking at.
Anyway, I appreciate you, Joshua. For people watching us, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, compliments for Joshua McCall, please feel free to drop a comment. They say it's really bothering me, Josh. I can't end up on that note. Like I can't just. Is it visible now, or am I still fuzzy?
You're still fuzzy.
You know,
But,
you know, so, you
the
know, some.
camera's not going to help that. So
Why am I? You mean fuzzy in the head? Is that what it is? Fine. Screw it. Actually, what if I shut it down and then turn it back on? Does that help? It
No.
doesn't, right? Why it doesn't help? Because it's like putting my hand on the screen and saying, "Oh, you can't see this." Thank you so much, Joshua. Thank you all. Take care. Bye.